Hello, guys, and welcome back to Fast Finance. I have a few pertinent articles for you today. The first one is going to be about the New York COVID 19 variant. It says here recent research suggests that the B.1.526 variant needs to be closely watched, mainly because of its ability to evade monoclonal antibodies and, to some extent, the vaccine induced antibody. So, this means that even though we have a vaccine, this vaccine might not be entirely effective against this variant, and if that's the case, this obviously could affect the overall broader economy, just as the pandemic did in the beginning. So it's just something to keep an eye on, that's for sure. But more positive news: the S&P 500 did have its best day since June, so it notched the biggest advantage in almost 9 months. The NASDAQ Composite jumped 3%. The Russell 2000 outperformed as well. GameStop continued its surge, and that's, for a variety of different reasons. That could be a video in and of itself. And then Bitcoin rallied as well. Bitcoin was kind of cruising downwards for a little bit there, but a bullish report from Citigroup actually indicated that it could, quote unquote, become the currency of choice for international trade in the years ahead. Those are strong words and definitely something that people took to heart because Bitcoin began to rise again as a result of that. So Zoom overperformed or outperformed expectations. We have here the revenue was $882.5 million as opposed to $811 million. That's a big beat. And then adjusted earnings per share was $1.22 versus 79 cents. Again, that's quite a big beat. Sales actually rose by 369% to $882.5 million. Since a lot of jobs are actually moving off campus in order to save money on real estate costs, Zoom does expect to retain much of its client base that it gained during the pandemic. So next up, we have essentially Biden and his relationship with EV. So to please conservationists and get the election, obviously, Biden vowed to set aside about 30% of the U.S. federal land and coastal areas for conservation. So that's triple current numbers. That aim, though, could conflict with his promises, his assertions that he was going to distance himself from his reliance on China, the U.S. reliance on China for rare minerals, particularly those minerals needed for EV batteries like lithium. And the administration has called any reliance on China for these minerals or otherwise a national security threat. For that reason, I don't think it's a big concern that Biden is going to actually restrict mining efforts for lithium and other minerals needed for EV batteries because, A, he does consider China to be a national security threat, but B, two sources familiar with the White House deliberations on domestic mining told Reuters that Biden's plans to allow mines to produce EV metals are probably going to be developed under existing environmental standards rather than face the Titan process that he's going to roll out over the next few months. And that will give us the opportunity, electric vehicle makers, the opportunity to actually rely on U.S. sourced lithium and other minerals. Next up, we have DraftKings. So DraftKings saw a jump after analysts raised their price targets and they beat sales. So essentially what happened here is fourth quarter revenue doubled. It was pretty impressive. They actually got a bump from Loop Capital to $105 a share from $100. Down here, I believe Goldman Sachs, a Goldman Sachs analyst raised his price target to $73 from $71. So raises all around, good news all around for DraftKings. Next up, we're just going to talk about inflation real fast. So inflation is near a decade low. And it's well below the 2% level that the Federal Reserve likes to target as its ideal. So the usual conditions for increased inflation, like tight job markets and public expectation of rising prices, are just not there. That said, anxiety about inflation is at an all-time high, actually. In the longer term, some economists and investors see a political climate that's not really conducive to the way that they'd like inflation to be treated. They're arguing that Biden's $1.9 million stimulus plan and the new goals of narrowing racial economic disparities might actually reduce the priority that makers will place on inflation, and as a result, inflation might get out of control. There is one Harvard University economist and former advisor to President Clinton and Obama. He says that the risk of inflation expectations shifting dramatically, and it's actually shifted so dramatically that it's leading to a disorderly fall in the dollar. It's at its highest since the 1970s. So essentially what that's saying is that the risk of inflation expectations moving is going to actually affect the dollar at its highest level since 1970. And then finally, we're going to talk just a little bit about South Korean battery makers. This is a big one if you do actually own this stock. So SK Innovation is looking for the White House to overturn a ruling by the FTC last month that said that the company would have to abandon a $2.6 billion factory that it wanted to open. That would have been in Georgia. LG Chem is going to protest that ruling because they say, and they had formally filed a complaint, that SKI had stole trade secrets from them relating to lithium-ion battery production. So that is why SK Innovation is looking to overturn a ruling, because I guess that they have denied such allegations that if they ever stole trade secrets and would like to open up the plant and the complex as intended originally. So again, if you do own this stock, that's something that you'd want to watch very closely. And if you do own LG Chem, it's something that you'd want to watch very closely. But other than that, I will continue to keep you guys updated in the days ahead. But I hope you learned something today and certainly have a great rest of your day as well.